Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom. How's it going?
Well, Tony, it's not exactly as always because normally I'm sitting in my house, and now we're sitting in a much fancier building in Arlington, Texas, built by a man named Jerry. And right now, on the field behind us, which you can't see by design, is the Texas Longhorns practicing. We are not allowed to show you the Texas Longhorns practicing. Although, if you want to learn a lesson from Barry Switzer way back in the 1970s, and when is that not a good idea?
Well,
it is possible to spy on Texas practices, as history indicates.
Yes, certainly, and there are a lot of possibilities when you're Barry Switzer, and you can do many different things. But welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. We are sponsored today by the Grateful Griddle. Buckeye fans, Grateful Griddle is here to take your events to the next level. Whether it's a wedding, corporate event, or a birthday party, their Columbus food truck catering serves up mouth-watering smash burgers, customizable menus, and unbeatable service. Head to GratefulGriddleOH.com and let them handle the flavor while you enjoy the fun. A Grateful Dead-themed food truck there for whatever you need, whatever occasion arises. They're there for you. Good food, good service, good company. So check them out, GratefulGriddleOH.com.
All right, so thank you to our sponsor. Thank you to Jerry Jones for building a football stadium that has a roof so that we do not have to be standing outside right now. That feels like that's going to be a key part of Friday night's game here between the Buckeyes and the Longhorns.
It is snowing. It is a little slushy outside. They've been treating the roads for a few days now, preparing for this. I think the latest I saw was still the 2 to 4 inches with a little bit of ice in there as well. The hope is that the Friday afternoon warmth will melt most of it, and then everybody will get here. I do hope some of the Ohio State fans that canceled their trip have maybe looked into canceling.
Well, yeah, it's definitely, you're better off if you're already here, because I think getting in this afternoon or this evening is going to be a challenge. But if you can get on a flight on Friday, you probably can, and you can certainly drive, I would say. It was snowing like crazy this morning, and then it warmed up, so now it's like rain and slush, and the highways were, we were on, I was not driving the bus. I was grateful to not be driving the bus, but the roads seemed fine, especially the highways seemed fine.
This wasn't like
right now,
30 mile per hour on the highway. It seemed like normal traffic.
No, it seemed fine. So, yeah, we had about a 15-mile drive over here, sort of from Irving to the stadium. So, yeah, and Edward says he and his girlfriend are driving from Houston on Friday. I think you probably can. You probably can do that. I would think, generally, interstates are usually in pretty decent shape after. And this is not, this is not a place that never gets snow. This is a place that gets snow a few times a winter, and it has been unfortunately timed right now for this one. But this is not, this is not snowing in Miami. This is a place that does own some snowplows.
Well, it is interesting that many members of the beat will sometimes drive to this event, in terms of the press conference at the stadium, and Ohioans can handle this kind of weather, but it's not my driving that is the concern. It's everybody else's driving that is the concern when you're dealing with this, something they only see every few times a year. But we have made it. We are here. Things look good. And go ahead and throw your questions in, and we will get to them as they come in. And so, Tom, now that we are here, one day away, everything seems to be like we don't know anything about injuries or anything like that. Everything seems fine. Nothing that we've heard. So it feels like both teams are going to be as full strength as possible. We know Texas, the offensive line has been banged up. So what is healthy for them is a very relative term.
Yeah, and I do want to say hello to anyone who might be watching at Granville High School right now. Had a message come through, not in the comments, that there might be someone watching at Granville High School, so go Blue Aces. All right, so health right now, it's all relative. Like, everything is on a little bit of a sliding scale, and no one's health goes all the way to 100 this time of year. Everyone is at least a little bit beat up. But I think the Texas offensive line is probably a little more beat up than the Ohio State offensive line. Now, the Ohio State offensive line has already lost their 2 star players, so they've already kind of had to adjust to that. Kelvin Banks, the left tackle for Texas, very, very talented player, potential future first-round pick. He's someone who had an ankle injury, saw him go down again in the Peach Bowl against Arizona State, came back again, but he's certainly been banged up. You've seen Josh Fryer had an ankle injury a couple games ago. No one's exactly 100% healthy. Banks seems like it's probably, he's not going to be 100%. He's not going to be anywhere close to 100%. You wonder how not close to 100% he's going to be. And then on the other side of the line, the right tackle, Cameron Williams, which constantly messes with me because Ohio State had a linebacker by that name about 10 years ago, and I'm like, no, I'm thinking about the other guy. No. Same guy, different name. Not from Massachusetts, this one.
Right.
So,
as far as you know.
As far as I know. He went out about halftime in the first round playoff game against Clemson. Tony, we've been talking about a lot of football teams and a lot of football players last month. He went down to Cameron Williams, the right tackle.
Tom, name the 2 linebackers for Tennessee right now.
Make me. Right tackle for Texas. Now, all these orange teams, Clemson, Texas. Why is the college football player doing this to me specifically?
Yeah, just to you.
Anyway, back to the right tackle for Texas, Cameron Williams, not to be confused with the former linebacker from Massachusetts. He went out at about halftime of that Clemson game, missed all of the Peach Bowl against Arizona State. All indications were he was available in that game if necessary. In an emergency, he was available in that game. He has been practicing this week from all indications, so he should be back. But again, how healthy is he? That's Ohio State health-wise. You haven't heard about any big issues there. They've been relatively healthy other than the significant season-ending injuries you already know about. It feels like Ohio State's probably in at least slightly better shape just based on that alone.
Yeah. No, and when you consider where those injuries are for Texas, that's a bad place to be dealing with those concerns going against Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau, which really the focal point, the fulcrum of the defense as a whole, to just create the chaos, the screw up the timing for Quinn Ewers. Like, that is not a good place to be dealing with injuries. We know Jake Majors, their center, missed a game recently, so like this is not a fully healthy offensive line. I'll be interested to see if they can hold up the entire game, because if they can't, then good luck to you. If they can, then that's going to make this a game of all 4 quarters, I would think.
Yeah, and a lot of that might be determined also with who gets off to a quick start, because Ohio State has jumped out very early on Tennessee and Oregon, 35-0 combined in the first quarter, and it is, if they do that to Texas, forget it. Like, game over, drive home safe. Sark is known for getting off to fast starts, and he does a great job with scripting plays. He does a great job with using motion to move you around and manipulate your defense, and sometimes that's going to take a little while to adjust to. And I heard someone say that the college football nerds were talking about that exact thing, actually, and said, if Texas doesn't score on the first 2 drives, like, it's probably drive home safe time, because they don't tend to get better. And that's sort of been the theme to a lot of these Texas games, is they score early, and then there's sort of a little bit of a lull, and then they will score later, and you'll jump out to a lead, and then it sort of drifts away and gets a little closer. I was wondering where everyone was walking. There's lunch. I was thinking there was like access to the field. No, there's lunch.
Much more important thing. There's food.
I was gonna like walk everyone over to be able to like look in the stadium bowl, but I think that's probably not. We're not allowed to do that yet. So we will if they do open it up. If they do open it up that we can go in there, we'll definitely let you walk around and take a look in there in a little bit. But right now, no. So if Texas can get off to a good start, boy, that changes this game a lot, because Ohio State has not had, Ohio State has been playing on JV degree of difficulty because they've been out early so much. It's been able to take away the opposing team's ability to run the ball. It's made them very one-dimensional, which then has allowed Ohio State to tee off in the pass rush. And if, Texas had, Quentin is saying Texas sleptwalked through last week. Yeah, I mean, Texas also lost to Georgia twice, and Texas had a lot of the same issues against Arizona State that they had against Georgia, and Texas and Georgia and Arizona State are similar defenses. So, I think you might have more systemic issues than just sleepwalking.
Yeah, you're sleepwalking, but you're also not running the ball on Arizona State, and you are getting run on. And we know Ohio State has been a fantastic third quarter team. So even if Texas does get out to a fast start, it seems like Texas always allows people to come back, allows the water to rise to its level, if you will. And you can't do that against Ohio State. You need to just keep at it, keep pounding it. But that's not what Texas has been able to do. Now, credit them for being able to stop the bleeding and then get back on top and distance themselves. Like when Clemson cut it to 7 points, one play later, Jaden Blue goes like 77 yards. It's like, okay, it was fun while it lasted. But Arizona State, I mean, there's versions of that game where the Sun Devils come out with a win on that one. Many, many times based on everything we saw in that one. Like, you could argue that Texas was very, very fortunate to come out of that game with a win because Arizona State gave it all they had and then some. And again, credit Texas for overcoming those difficulties. But these are lesser programs. These are lesser teams that Texas has been struggling with and has been allowing them to come back. So don't do that against Ohio State.
Yeah, and I don't think any Texas fan could say they weren't at least a little bit fortunate. You had a targeting call that is pretty universally reviewed as like, yeah, man, that's pretty much the textbook definition of targeting that didn't get called targeting that would have extended Arizona State's final drive. And then you had you're facing a 4th and 13 do or die play in overtime. I mean, it's hard to say Texas was not on the brink in that game. And they had a lead. They had a 14-3 lead that they built up in the span of about a minute of game time. But then just these like long stretches. And Texas, one of those touchdowns was a kick return touchdown, which it also counts for 7 points. But I think I have questions about the Texas offense, and I think I'm going into this game with the same question I had going into the Rose Bowl, which is, okay, Ohio State offense, Ohio State defense, Texas offense, Texas defense. Which is the worst of the 4 units? And for the Oregon game, for the Rose Bowl, it was pretty clearly the Oregon defense, and it was like, well, okay, that feels like if one of these 4 units is going to crack, that's where the crack is going to start to form. To me, the answer in this one is the Texas offense.
For sure.
And if they can't run the ball, and they have not been able to run the ball really much at all 2 of the last 3 games, that puts a lot on Quinn Ewers. And I know every fan base hates its quarterback to a certain degree, one way or another, but the degree of confidence from Texas fans in Quinn Ewers being able to win this game sort of on his own is not incredibly high.
Well, I've been told that if Ohio State just blitzes Quinn Ewers and gets after him, then they'll be okay. But the thing is, Ohio State has blitzed, I think, 4 times in each of their first 2 playoff games, and they've gotten to the quarterbacks and created all kinds of pressure. If they're able to do the same thing with Quinn Ewers without even blitzing him, then that's also going to be bad news for Texas. But he is a guy that will throw the ball up, takes a little bit of time processing and getting it to the right spots. Sark does a fantastic job of scheming up some things for him. Some of those things are way too slow developing for an Ohio State defense, I think, so they need to scrap some of those things, all these misdirections and throwing back across the field. Like, don't probably get rid of those things. But overall, I don't expect Texas to be able to run. Now, could they hit a home run? Yeah, for sure. I mean, that could happen. But I'm not expecting a consistent running game. And if there's no consistent running game, you're asking Quinn Ewers to be the epitome of a field general. And that's not always been his thing. He's up and down. And some of these throws that he makes where it seems to be like no zip on the ball. Throw it to the first down line and it's just a little flick. It's like, those concern me at times.
And I see Quentin, who's obviously a Texas fan, in the comments. I would like to know how many points you expect Texas to score in this game. Are you thinking Texas wins this game 17-10, or are you thinking Texas is scoring 38 points in this game? I'm genuinely curious because when I look at this, every time I look at this, it's like the way Texas wins this game in my mind is, well, either you score a couple times on defense or special teams, or you're trying to win at 17-13. That to me, and is there a way they win? Sure, absolutely. So Quentin says 24-17 Texas. Okay, sure. I mean, maybe. I think you might need a defensive score to get to 24 points. If Texas can run the ball, they can win the game. Can Texas run the ball? We'll find out. If Texas can force multiple turnovers, give themselves some short fields to work with, they can win the game. Can they? We'll find out. If it comes down to a field goal, how confident are Texas fans in Bert Auburn being able to kick a field goal with the game on the line? Because we just saw two attempts at that in perfect indoor conditions on New Year's Day, and it was 0 for 2. So, and you know, again, the Texas, we're talking about this as if Texas is a terrible team. Texas is not a terrible team. You're just at the point of the season where we're looking at some of the best teams in the nation, and you're kind of nitpicking. It's like, well, okay, yeah, all of these teams are good. Texas has a fantastic defense. You have not heard us say one negative thing about the Texas defense, because the Texas defense is fantastic. This is the time of year when the bad unit on your team, the weaker unit on your team, that's what decides these games at this point. And it feels like that is the Texas offense, unless they have a really, really different performance.
And bad unit is a very relative term
Sure,
when we're talking about this level of college football, where you're talking about the 4 teams that are left. The worst unit is still one of the best units in the nation. But when you look at what Texas has not been able to do, which is run the ball against Arizona State, run the ball against Georgia, Ohio State's defense is somewhere in between those two. You know,
Ohio State's defense is substantially better. I mean, statistically, substantially better than both Arizona State and Georgia in terms of yards per carry. Yards per carry, Arizona State and Georgia are both in the 29-32 range. Clemson, who they ran wild against, is 99th in the country. Ohio State, who they're about to play, is 2nd in the country. That I think is going to be a challenge. And I saw someone asking, well, what if Ohio State can't run the ball? Well, Ohio State's passing game is probably better than Texas's passing game. Ohio State's wide receiver core is certainly deeper than Texas's wide receiver core. I mean, again, not to take anything away from Texas, Matthew Golden is a dynamite wide receiver number 1. Fantastic. Gunnar Helm is a fantastic tight end. Absolutely great, 100%. The rest of the wide receivers, they're fine. We've seen some drops. We've seen guys just not be factors. Watching the SEC championship game and then the 2 playoff games, I think it was Isaiah Bond who had a really big game in the SEC championship game, and then he was hurt, and then I think it was 2 for 38 or something like that in the Arizona State game. There's not a lot of consistency there out of the Texas wide receivers. And I think Ohio State's going to be able to run the ball some. I don't think Ohio State's going to be able to run the ball a ton. I just think Ohio State's going to be able to run the ball enough. And enough is 3.5 yards a carry, 4 yards a carry. I don't think Ohio State's going to run all over Texas by any means. But I think they'll be able to run the ball some. And if Ohio State's running the ball for 3.5 yards a carry, and Texas is running the ball for 1.5 yards a carry, which is basically what they did against Georgia, I believe, well, that alone might be enough to be the difference between these two teams.
Yeah, and Ohio State didn't run the ball very well against Indiana and still won 38-15 because they were able to throw the ball. They're running the ball differently than they have been since that Michigan loss. They're doing more counters, more outside stuff. And it struck me, I was talking with somebody, and they're saying, this is an incredibly fast Texas defensive line. Well, if it's an incredibly fast defensive line, then counters and things like that are going to be pretty effective. Can be effective.
Yes.
And Ohio State's been doing well with those, and more gap schemes, more power, where offensive line, a singular or 2 offensive linemen can just go get somebody, as opposed to the zone blocking that has not been as effective, especially between the tackles. So this is a much more fun attack for the Ohio State offensive line, and it's been much more effective. So I'm not, if they rushed for 156 against Texas or Tennessee, 181 against Oregon. If they're in between there, I think that's certainly a winnable number based on the evidence here. But I do think I don't know that Ohio State will have the success throwing the ball that they did in these first 2 games, because Texas is going to try to keep things in front of them, play zone, have a deep safety, and try to make Ohio State earn it all the way down the field.
Yeah, they're going to have to be, and that's going to be how Texas plays. Texas is going to play a lot more zone than Ohio State has seen in recent games. They're going to have to be a little more methodical. Now, Will Howard has completed 80% of his passes in 6 or 7 games this season. I mean, it's basically been half of the time he completes 80% of his passes. And with the Ohio State wide receivers, if you're completing 80% of your passes and you're getting some yards after catch, which they typically do, then that's probably enough to keep the chains moving. Ohio State is just kind of a more efficient, consistent offense. The reason you play keep them back, keep everything in front of you, is because a lot of the offenses that Texas has played this year are just not as efficient, not as consistent as the Ohio State offenses. So that works. It's, if you're playing a high school offense and you make them go down the field, like a high school quarterback is not going to be able to make throws consistently enough. Texas has not been playing high school teams this year, but the general principle remains the same. I think you're going to see Ohio State be able to do some of that stuff and move the ball down the field a little more effectively. One thing is...
It's a lie.
One thing that I think we haven't talked about is Georgia. I saw someone talking about Quinn Ewers throwing for 388 yards against Georgia, which is great. How many points did they score? Because the offense bogs down in the red zone. Like, you can throw. There have been Ohio State teams like that in recent years where if they can't run the ball, you can throw. You can pile up enormous numbers, and then the red zone offense bogs down, and then you end up kicking field goals, or you end up, if you don't trust your field goal kicker, going for it on fourth down, and then sometimes you turn the ball over in downs. Texas got to get some sixes down there. They'll probably get some, but will they be able to get enough? If they get 2 touchdowns and 5 red zone trips, they're going to lose the football game, no matter how many passing yards Quinn Ewers has.
And Quinn Ewers said it himself yesterday that field goals aren't going to win this. And boy, truer words. They need to be successful in the red zone, and I'm not talking field goals. They need, if they get down there 5 times, they need at least 3 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. If they're kicking 3 field goals, or if they're only scoring 2 touchdowns and 5 trips, that's not a winning number. And it would be doom, basically, in my opinion, if they can't get into the end zone when you're down there that many times. If they're only 2 of 5, that's a loss for Texas, I think.
Well, what is the magic number for Texas? What is Texas? Where is the number where the win percentage for Texas goes above 50%? Because I think it's north of 20. If they get to 30, I think you're looking at a much higher than 50%. Yeah. So where is it? Is it 24?
I start thinking like 27, 24 is, because if they're scoring 27, then they're also limiting Ohio State offensively, I think. So I think once you hit that 27 point, or basically if I think Ohio State scores about 28, and then can Texas get that 30? But I think if Texas is at 27, then that's about a 50-50 shot, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting that you could have these are 2 good enough defenses that you could have this be a 17-13, 20-17 kind of game. But this could also be a game where you do play in the 30s and it ends up 35-31, something like that. And which one to you is more likely?
I think more likely would be like the 20-17 than the 35-31. And if it is a 35-31, I think that's kind of out of character for both teams, because both teams do pride themselves on their defenses, and I think these are 2 very good defenses. So, like, if Ohio State is giving up 31, if Ohio State's giving up 35 or 31, how many of those are the fault of the Ohio State offense?
Probably 10 to 14 of the points would be my guess. I think Texas, just purely the Texas offense on drives of longer than, let's say, 50 yards, is going to be probably having trouble scoring more than 17 to 20 points, I think. This is a pretty good defense. This is certainly going to be the best offense that Texas has faced this year by a wide margin. And when you see, I think this is an Ohio State offense that has an opportunity to stress the Texas defense in ways that they have not been stressed before, where Janae Barron is a great corner, a couple of good, very, very good safeties. How are Texas fans feeling about Malik Muhammad? Because we've watched three games, and it's like he's not covering Emeka Egbuka or Jeremiah Smith or Carnell Tate, and you're still seeing some completions downfield, you're seeing some grabbing, you're seeing some holding, you're seeing, there's a lot of that I kind of look at and go, again, this is the kind of stuff we look at when we're looking at these games. Where are the weaknesses? Where are the weak points? And I think if I look at Muhammad, like, it feels like somewhere that Ohio State might be able to find some success down the field. And I don't think it's going to take that much success. This is not a team that has to score 48 points to win this game.
Well, when we talk about Ohio or Texas scoring, you say 27 points to give them a 50-50 shot. What is that number for Ohio State? Is it 21?
Yeah, 20, 21, 24, something like that.
I think if Ohio State gets to 24, you're feeling pretty darn good about their chances because of the way that defense is playing. And so, and I don't think that you necessarily need Texas's help to get to those 24 points because of the way the Ohio State offense is playing. And that's not having any kind of idea of how well the running game is going to go. But again, we keep talking about how Texas has not faced a passing game like Ohio State's. Now, I'm not saying Ohio State's going to go for 330 yards or anything like that. It's just the facts are, when you look at yards per attempt, I think it's like Vanderbilt, Florida, and Arkansas are the best passing games that Texas has faced. What is that? That's not real.
And when they played Florida, it wasn't TJ Lagway. It was the third-string quarterback that game. So. It was also Arkansas is a team that, they throw for high yards per attempt, but it's because they don't throw the ball a lot. So when they throw it,
it's like an Army or a Navy.
Not, right. It's not a team that is relying on the pass. It's a team that passes because you're not expecting the pass. And Vanderbilt is Diego Pavia is a lot of fun, but Diego Pavia is kind of a run-first quarterback, and sort of the similar principle, but also just you want to compare the Arkansas wide receiver unit to the Ohio State wide receiver unit, or the Vanderbilt wide receiver unit to the Ohio State wide receiver unit. Doesn't feel like that's going to be a great comp. What's the best wide receiver unit that Texas has faced this year?
Maybe their own in practice.
Yeah, really, that might be the answer. You go through,
and they're only healthy, half the time.
Right. Yeah. I think that there are going to be some things. This is the best defensive line, quite possibly, that Ohio State has faced this year. Quite possibly, maybe Michigan. And you saw what Michigan did. Now, this is a little bit of an Ohio State offense. It's a little different than what it was. But there are elements of this Texas defense that I think are going to present unique challenges to Ohio State. But look at the defenses that Ohio State has faced so far in the playoff. Tennessee, who has some very talented players. James Pierce is going to be a first-round edge rusher. They've got some, Jamad McCoy's a very good corner. You've got some good pieces there, and they just lit Tennessee on fire. And Oregon has a bunch of NFL talent on that team, and they beat Oregon worse than they beat Tennessee. And you look at who Texas has played so far, and Clemson is a 3-loss ACC team, and then they beat Arizona State, which is a 3-loss Big 12 team. And I think even the most hardcore Texas fan would be hard pressed to say Texas has either A, played better competition than Ohio State in the playoff, or B, looked even remotely as good as Ohio State has in the playoff. So.
No. Every step of the way, Ohio State has kind of been preparing for this. I think they are better prepared for this game based on who they have faced throughout the season in terms of defenses, defensive lines. Who has Tennessee played or Texas played that has been warming them up for Ohio State? Because I don't know that anything they saw against Arizona State really prepares them for Ohio State, or anything they saw against Clemson really prepares them for Ohio State. But Ohio State playing Penn State's defensive line, Michigan's defensive line, heck, Indiana's defensive line, and then Tennessee and Oregon. These are all very, very good defensive lines. So I think they've been preparing for this one for a while.
I wasn't sure if Quentin was trolling or not right up until the last post, which was, yes, Texas has played 2 conference champions. Which, yes, is technically true.
True. And
lucky someone from CUSA didn't sneak in the field.
Yeah, Ohio State's played one, so they got you there.
They do in fact have me. No, Marshall. See, Marshall won the Sun Belt, so yes. So and we're talking about this and we're being very definitive about this, and I think we both have a reasonably strong feel for how this might go. But I think there's also, we should talk about what does it look like for Texas to win this game. And we may do a whole show on this if we don't run out of time, which we might run out of time.
Still got a bold prediction show, Tom.
We still have probably 3 listener question shows. We do tend to do a how does Ohio State win, how does Texas win. We may just go back to the hotel and just stop, just do nothing but podcast for the next 24 hours or so before we get on the bus to come back here. But I mean, a Texas win to me looks like it has to start with the defense. The defense has to contain Ohio State. You keep Ohio State from being able to run the ball. You make Ohio State one-dimensional. You put a lot of pressure on Will Howard. You win the line of scrimmage. You get pressure. You get in the backfield. You get him to make a mistake or two. And we've seen Will Howard make a mistake or two. But a lot of that may hinge on Texas being able to get out front. If Texas can get, you get an early lead, Texas gets the ball, goes down the field, scores a touchdown, you get a stop, you go down the field and kick a field goal at 10-0. That's sort of the start of okay, this game is not going at all like what I expected. If Ohio State's scoring with Texas, we talked about Texas needs to, if Texas scores this many points, they could, if they score 30 points, they have a pretty good chance of winning. I think it's in Texas's best interest if the game total stays under like 40 points.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And, in terms of what it looks like if for Texas to win, I'm not expecting, if you look at Ohio State's 2 losses, I'm not expecting this to look like the Oregon loss because this is a different Ohio State defense. I could see it looking like the Michigan loss because this is still an offense that can make mistakes, can turn the ball over, and I think that's what it would take for something to look like that. Not a 13-10, but a 20-17 or something like that.
I'm gonna run real quick and look if the Stadium Bowl is like clear that we can give people a look at the field. But
and I will. What time is the pressers at 12:30?
Like 12. Yes.
Well, it's 12:23 right now. So
okay.
We will be wrapping up here shortly, and then we'll have a live show of the press conference with Steve Sarkisian and Brian Day, which once you guys drop off of here, when we're done, you can go catch that. And Kevin's getting ready to run that, but that's not going to start here for a little bit. So Tom's taking a look at the bowl to see if we can get a look there, because I assume practice should be over right now.
Still closed.
Still closed, Tom.
Yeah. Okay.
Were you reprimanded for looking?
Yes. Sorry, I was trying to see the scoreboard, which is underneath the overhang, to see if it still said Stadium Bowl closed. So, yes, in fact, it is still closed.
So then,
no one is on the field, but
okay, but still, don't look.
Yes, noted.
Okay. So how much? You say 12:30, 12:45?
That's what I'm trying to remember. I don't know.
I think it's 12:30.
Is it 12:30? Okay.
So maybe we'll start wrapping
so we
up
probably
that
do need
way.
to wrap up.
And again, we've got a bunch more stuff coming up for you guys. Tom said them all. Bold predictions, preview, and I don't know how much we're going to get to. We still got a bunch of listener questions, and if we don't get to all of them, we apologize, but we do have a bunch.
We will.
We're gonna do a super
Doug
chat
Shepard
there.
says, hit the thumbs up, Sir Eric. Thank you. We appreciate you guys.
Thank you for those.
But yeah, and we're gonna try. I'm gonna try later tonight as well to have Ross Fulton, who's our X's and O's guy, do a live show. So keep an eye on that. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. Make sure you hit the bell so you get notified, because we're going to have a ton of stuff coming up very, very soon for you. Pretty much, essentially, just assume we're going to be doing something pretty much between now and the start of the game.
Yes, constantly, all 48 hours. So thank you all for tuning in. Hit the thumbs up before you go. Subscribe to the channel, as Tom said. And, of course, continue to find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later.